let's talk about libertarians. I made one upload on this channel kind of playing devil's advocate against the libertarian platform. Now I thought I would do one playing it in favor of the libertarian platform, because to be honest, there is some value in a lot of the political ideas that are out there. Now, what do we do about the libertarians and the future of this political party? This is something that I think is much more about ideas. It is much more about the sort of philosophical movement rather than, policy making. Because there are libertarians out there like Adam Kokesh and Daryl W. Perry, and to an extent Stefan Molyneux, if you want to lump him in that bunch. I know he's not part of the American Party because he's Canadian, but they're all talking about living without government and scaling down the rules of government. We also have people like Gary Johnson, who I guess are pseudo-Republicans, pseudo-libertarians, who get the party's nominations anyway, and they make people angry. What do we think about all this? I'd say that the absolute strongest cases for anything associated with libertarianism is the analogy of, it's just sort of saying government is like the referee in a game. They're there to sort of make decisions. They're there to follow the rules. If somebody isn't following the rules, they give an infraction out. But here's the thing, though. Can you play a game, can you play a sports game without a referee? Yes, you can. It is possible. More importantly, if it's possible, why do you ever need anyone to tell you how to organize? Can you not just organize based on human direction and the human sense of a moral compass? Can you not just decide that you are going to live your life the way you want and not bring harm upon anyone else? No matter what anybody says, though, the non-aggression principle is something that is brilliant. It's like you get to control your body. You own yourself, but you do not bring aggression upon any other person or anyone else's property. Now let's talk about something associated with secessionism. I think that libertarian secessionism is the single thing that attracts me to the movement the most. It's like the whole notion of taking a fence and just putting it around your property where you live. If your house is on 1 acre or 2 acres, you just put a fence around it and you say, this is mine. I live here. And I don't need the government. I'm going to grow my own food. I'm just going to live on this piece of land, and I'm never coming off until I die. If you want to say that, then you should have the right to do that. There's this guy out there named Matt Zwolinski who has sort of put forth the single most blunt argument in favor of that, where it's like, there is enough land for everybody to live in on the world. There's enough land to go around. You're not depriving anybody of anything. It's the same as, just walking up to someone's lawn and taking out a blade of grass with your fingertips, And it's just like, they even talk about that in the law of Deuteronomy 23. A man may pluck grain from someone's field with a hand, but not a tool. It's just like you are not causing harm to anyone by just putting a fence around your 2 acres or whatever it is. And it's also like Charlie Chaplin said in the film The Great Dictator, the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. So your 2 acres is not robbing anybody of richness. More importantly, you don't need a government if you're living that lifestyle. So I don't know how anyone could ever be opposed to libertarianism if you can just even recognize that a person can physically live without a government. So it's just a matter of getting other people to start thinking in a different way. And, one of the things that really benefits libertarian thought is they recognize that this is something that is going to take place over the course of generations. There are people like Adam Kokesh who say they're going to sign an executive order if they were president that to dissolve the federal government. And there are also people who just sort of say that, this is about getting people to think in a different way, and there are going to be very gradual changes over the next 100 years and 200 years that are going to push people to a society where they recognize that government is not necessary and that we can live our lives without government. And if we just have this world where everybody just has a little fence around their 1 acre or 2 acres, and they just live on this little enclosure, that would be brilliant. That's the world peace that everyone's talking about. And, it's just like if everybody follows the principle of non-aggression, there won't be disputes, there won't be problems, and, anything that happens is under your control. Some of the other things that go along with this are, it's one of the things, though, about libertarian secessionism is how do you get to this point? Because there's this guy out there named Sam Cedar who debates a lot of libertarians, and he was just like, well, who owns the land? Who owns that land that you want to put your fence around? And the simple answer to that is, you own it. All parties recognize you as the owner. If you have, if you've purchased it, then you are recognized as the owner on the deed. The government recognizes you as the owner during the time of secession, because that's what secession is. You're saying, hey, this is mine, and I know we had an agreement in the past, but now I'm terminating that agreement, and I'm breaking away. That's what secession is. I mean, it's the same thing with South Carolina. They were part of the United States, but they tried to break away. It's the same thing by putting a fence around your 2 acres. Not to mention, though, let's talk about some other aspects other than libertarian secessionism. What about the non-interventionist foreign policy? Because everybody is absolutely enthralled with this. Even the people who don't like libertarians are saying that libertarians are useful because they are promoting peace in the world through non-aggression with the non-interventionist foreign policy. No war with Syria. Leave Palestine and Israel up to the Palestinians and the Israelis. Get these American troops back home so we don't become the policemen of the world and bankrupt the country with military spending and building bases all over the world in the triple digits, when we could be using that to try and find ways to get people health care at home, or at the very least so our men and women in uniform don't die for these for-profit wars, so they don't die because Americans are trying to be the policemen of the world. So it's like the non-interventionism is just bloody brilliant, and we should just welcome it. And that is the way to become a sort of more peaceful and prosperous world, is to just sort of protect our borders at home. The same way you would protect your little 2 acres with a fence around it, you protect your country. And it's just like through freedom we can achieve that. And through an understanding of not violating other people's freedom based on the principle of non-aggression, that is something that can be genuinely achieved. More importantly, the libertarians are the only ones out there saying that taxation is theft. They are the only ones saying that no one should be taking your property forcefully. No one should be taking your money forcefully. One of the largest things about the income tax is you have no choice. If you don't pay your income, you can't say you're not going to pay your income tax because, so much of it is taken out from the paychecks, like the payroll tax or whatever you want to call it. It's like that stuff, is taken out immediately. And it's just like, there is a fair argument to talk about when they want to pass the national sales tax, because that is based upon transactions. It is based upon, money going out as opposed to money going in. And I don't ever want to hear that they are the same thing. Freedom to earn is freedom to trade. Well, one is going out and the other is going in. If they wanted to institute some sort of governmental form until we can actually achieve this sort of, non-interventionist, libertarian, utopian setup, then you could talk about the fair tax, a 23% national sales tax, which is based on transactions. How could people be opposed to this on the left? Why are the left-wingers opposed to a consumption tax? Think about all the millionaires that are hiding their monies in the Cayman Islands and in the Swiss bank accounts and, in capital gains. You can't hide your money on the open exchange. Why isn't the Green Party behind this? What is going to stop Shell from drilling in the Arctic? Is it going to be screaming at a corporation with a sign in your hand? Or is it going to be a 23% tax on consumption? All the resources that it takes to get people up to the northern point of Alaska to start drilling in the ice? What is going to stop them? Protests or putting a tax on consumption? Paying the workers food, paying the transportation and logistics, all taxed at 23%. What is Shell going to do? They're going to say, oh, hey, let's find out how we can do solar panels instead. We're going to become Shell Solar. So, we're talking about some other things that are going to be in favor of libertarianism, and that would be, this is something that was put forth about 20 years ago by an individual whose name I won't say because he might have a sour connotation. But it's like, government is horribly unorganized. And the government doesn't even create a policy. The political climate creates the policy. They have to respond to changes here and changes there, problems in the Middle East, connections with the UN where we have to respond because of our status, and also, people will get, out of control and revolt if we don't do certain things, and we have, the border. All of these different things are happening all at once, and the government has to respond to those things. They don't create their own policy, let alone through divided Congress, let alone with the veto system, which are good things, powers of checks and balances. They don't create the policy. The political climate creates the policy. So if that's the case, give more freedom and civil liberties to the people. Well, the political climate's going to sort itself out. Give more freedom and civil liberties to the people. Who gives a flying fuck about what, Joe somebody is doing at home? Stop looking at him through his webcam. Stop listening to our phone calls. Sort out your own damn political climate. Or at the very least, if we wanted to say that the government should be defunct, I'm going to put a fence around my property, and I'll be like, all right, I'm growing my own food. Boom. We don't need the government anymore. I mean, that's one of the things where we really just have to recognize. Human beings do have the possibility to function without government. So if they do have that possibility, we all just have to get people to start thinking in a different way. We have to sort of show them that it is possible to develop this type of system where people are just respecting other people's freedom, because it is, well, for starters, it's a more prosperous way to go. I was about to say because it's the right thing to do, but that invokes a whole nother connections of morality. Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson would have my head on a plate. It would be like, this is just the way that society can prosper more. This is the way that society will function better, is simply by obeying the non-aggression principle. Not even because you think it's right or wrong, but because you think it will lead to prosperity and peace in the world. View it from that perspective. More importantly, you own yourself. You decide what goes in your body. If you want to do crystal meth or heroin or any sort of illegal drugs, that was your freedom and that's what you chose to do with it. But let's face it, the average person isn't going to do heroin. Are you going to do heroin just because it's legal? I wouldn't. Why not? Because it's dangerous and it can kill you. I mean, this is what it's about. It's about education. It's about thought. It's about awareness of your own self, and it's about awareness of the people around you and the earth, and recognizing that we don't need this monolithic force trying to tell people what to do. We don't need laws. Laws are just, things that other people decided for us. All we need to do is respect other people's non-aggression, and you obtain more power over yourself. If you want to just put that fence around your property and say, this is mine, I'm staying on here, I'm never talking to another human being again, all right, then you have the freedom to do that. Or if you want to say, I'm going to be part of a community, I'm going to live here and we're going to share things, we're never going to act aggressively toward another person, you have to strive toward the ideal. Because if you don't strive toward the ideal, then you are not trying. I am not a realist. And in your heart, I bet you're not a realist either. If you have a sort of expectation for the world, you can strive toward that. And once we just sort of say, we need to be realistic and not do that, then you are sacrificing everything that you believe in just because you want to make other people quiet. And that's not acceptable. We need to push forward to the absolute most extreme potential of humanity, which is respect, honor, and preserving other people's freedom in addition to ourselves, obeying the principle of non-aggression. All right, well, that's my little rant in favor of libertarianism. I also did one devil's advocate against libertarianism. If you have anything to say at all, please drop a comment below. I would love to hear some feedback. And that's all for me now. Talk to you soon.